What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson, and the New York Giants have overhauled their defense in one big, humongous way with some big dudes up front in the front seven to stop the run. We're going to go ahead today and discuss the New York Giants' revamped run defense and what kind of impact that can have on the upcoming 2023 season. Now, we all know that the run defense was arguably the Giants' biggest kryptonite last year. We saw them get ran all over in the divisional round of the postseason by the Philadelphia Eagles, who the Giants will be facing on Christmas Day this year. That was just announced today. If you did not see that, we will be playing the Eagles Week 16, 4:30 p.m. Christmas Day. It's either going to be a moment where the Giants turn into the Grinches and they steal some Christmas joy from Philadelphia, or it's going to be a day where I feel sadness on a day where I'm supposed to feel joy. But I digress. Let's talk about this run defense that the New York Giants have built this offseason, because Joe Schoen's done a phenomenal job adding depth, finding starting level talent, and really just revamping that unit as a whole. But before we dive into all of that good stuff, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the topic down below. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on the Giants' revamped run defense?
I'm doing great. And look, last year, and specifically Boston Scott, has ruined my entire perspective of what the Giants can do stopping the run. And we saw a big kind of proponent of this Giants defense get lost by the wayside because of Wink Martindale's scheme last year. And Joe Schoen said it recently. He didn't realize how important having those big interior defenders were until he realized how important they were to Wink's specific scheme. Last year, we didn't have much money. We only had a certain amount of draft capital to allocate toward bolstering several positions of need. And one of the things that we just couldn't really solve last season was the linebacker position with Blake Martinez coming off the ACL tear. We obviously let him go. And then, of course, we couldn't really add more interior depth, talented interior depth at that. So this offseason has been a totally different storyline. The Giants have gone out, got a couple of really big guys, notably, Raheem Nunez-Roche, and then A'Shawn Robinson. And then, of course, you get Dexter Lawrence back on that extension, and he's actually going into his fifth-year option. So the Giants got some big boys in the trenches, and Dexter Lawrence finally has the support he needs. For the first time in his career, he played over 1,000 snaps last year. For a player of his size, it's important to get him rest because you want to keep guys like that healthy, and you want to not have a steep drop-off when it comes to certain categories when he's not on the field. And ultimately, the second he left the field last year, we saw massive running lanes open up. He was the key cog in that run defense and really helping to mitigate those explosive plays. And our linebackers weren't good enough to really make plays. But the Giants added two big boys. We got ourselves a premium linebacker in free agency and a couple of really good corners who are solid against the run. So I think that the Giants have done a really solid job in making opposing offenses one-dimensional. That's what Wink Martindale said last year during the offseason. He was essentially like, one of the best ways to limit an offense is to make them one-dimensional. If you take away the running game, it makes our job a lot easier because now we can predict what they're going to do. When the running game's working, it's really hard to stop them because then you have to play action, then you just open up the passing game, and things become a lot more difficult to kind of work around. But Anthony, I want to start with Raheem Nunez-Roche coming from Tampa Bay. What I love about those two big guys that we did bring in, they've both won Super Bowls recently. Both of these guys are really, really experienced at the NFL level. They have a ton of success, and they're really good reserves, right? Like, they're not going to be starting for us, and that's an ideal thing because you're getting two guys with Super Bowl pedigrees, really good players. They're tough as nails, really good tacklers, and some of them actually have some decent pass rush stats. We'll discuss that, obviously. And then you have Bobby Okereke, who's coming in and helping us fill that LB1 role as the Mike, and he's a really good sideline-to-sideline linebacker, one of the best we've had probably in a decade. Blake Martinez had some decent games. He was solid for us at times, but Okereke has so much more upside, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. But let's start with Raheem. Anthony, what are your thoughts on him coming from Tampa Bay, and how important do you think he is, not just a tangibly solid player, but also a leader? He's a really big voice. He's tough as nails, and he brings a lot of energy to this defense.
Well, what you're describing there, that pretty much fits the mold of every New York Giants acquisition since Joe Schoen has come to town. He's always said that he wants good people in the locker room. He wants smart, tough, dependable, and he wants good leaders. A culture fit here with Raheem Nunez-Roche. And I will say, in terms of what he brings to the field, it's straight run defense. This is not a guy you expect to really get after the quarterback or contribute much as a pass rusher throughout his career. That's never been his strong suit. But as he himself described it during one of his press conferences, stopping the run is what I do. I do that in my sleep. That's what Raheem Nunez-Roches is bringing to the New York Giants defense. So expect to see him lined up alongside Dexter Lawrence, alongside Leonard Williams, and really just stuffing the run. He's a veteran. He's been around the NFL for a very, very long time, and he's been a very quality player. 6th-round pick in 2015 from the Kansas City Chiefs. Played with the Chiefs from 2015 to 2017, then the Buccaneers 2018 to 2020. Won a Super Bowl, as you mentioned. Throughout his entire career, though, he only has 3.5 sacks. His career high for sacks in a season was 2, but he does have 132 tackles to his name, 14 tackles for loss, and 1 forced fumble and 1 fumble recovery. So, again, this is a guy who's going to plug some gaps here, stuff some holes and get involved in the running game. But don't discount how important that is, especially to have a player like that as a depth piece, because this is a player who's been a starter, who has started very big games in his career and has gotten to the highest level of contribution on some of the best NFL defenses in the recent memory. So, when you have a player like that in the twilight of his career, a veteran who's a good leader, but he's one of your reserve options, that's something that I do really, really like. Just having a straight run stuffer as a backup role when you're looking at the Giants front seven in particular, and you're taking a look at some of these guys like Dexter Lawrence. He's a great pass rusher and a run defender. Leonard Williams does both of those things really well. But having some of those extra big bodies who are just known for stuffing the run, that helps you on those 3rd and short, 4th and short, goal line situations, all of those packages. To have extra guys out there who can stop the run and can fill those gaps, that's really important. So that's the role that Nunez-Roches is going to fill for the Giants defense. But then again, you take a look at another player that they signed who's probably going to be their starter in A'Shawn Robinson. Now, Alex, I really like the signing of A'Shawn Robinson. I think it was very underrated when he was initially signed. I saw a lot of Giants fans saying this is a depth signing. In my opinion, this is a starter signing. When you look at a defense, the 3-4 defense that the Giants like to play, they need 3 quality interior defensive linemen. It's not a 4-3 defense. They don't need 2. They need 3 interior defensive linemen. They had Lawrence, they had Williams, and then they had a rotation of some very mediocre guys, if you want to even call them mediocre, at that 3rd defensive line spot. Now, A'Shawn Robinson, that's a quality starter in my opinion. Alex, what do you think that A'Shawn Robinson's going to bring to this team, and do you also envision him as one of those starting level players for the Giants defense this year?
I mean, starting level players in the context of stopping the run, sure. Like, he can definitely get a substantial amount of reps. I mean, last year he only played 360 total snaps. But if you look back earlier in his career, he played 735 with Detroit in 2017, played 526 with them in 2019, 623 with the Rams in 2021 during the Super Bowl run. You see even some decent pass rush snaps from him. 4 sacks in 2021, 2 years ago, 16 quarterback hurries, and 20 total pressures. And what I like about him, he's never had a missed tackle rate above 10%, and that's pretty solid. Last year was at 9.3%. He's a surefire tackler. He's a very good run defender. I would actually go out on a limb and say he actually might be a slightly better run defender than Raheem Nunez-Roches, and both of them are pretty solid in that respect, but I think Raheem has a better kind of locker room mentality. I think that he's just full of energy. He's going to be more of a leader, but A'Shawn Robinson is tough as nails, guys. This guy just shows up and kicks ass. Former Alabama product. Those guys just tend to work out. 6'4", 330 pounds. And by the way, he's 28 years old. He's really young. Raheem Nunez is 29, almost 30 years old. So you're seeing Robinson's actually a pretty youthful guy. And I think that he could actually make a pretty significant impact. You're not going to see that massive drop off in talent when Dexter Lawrence leaves the field when it comes to stopping the run. Like, these guys are going to fill that gap really, really efficiently. The pass rush, obviously, Dexter Lawrence offers head and shoulders above them, but it's really, when you're taking him out, you're taking him out on running downs, early downs, then you're putting Dexter out there, 2nd, 3rd downs, 4th downs if they're trying to convert. That's when you want to have him out there. But at the same time, if you're in a 4th and 1 situation and you have Jalen Hurts, quarterback sneaking, you put those guys all in there, man. You put A'Shawn Robinson in there. You put Raheem Nunez-Roches in there. And you put Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams in there. And you just stuff the gaps. And then you have those big bodies just pushing that offensive line, moving that line of scrimmage backward instead of getting pushed themselves. So I think that having these bigger bodies, especially experienced ones with the mentality you're looking for, you can't go wrong with that. A'Shawn Robinson was, someone that was kind of on the hill. Like, we didn't know if he was going to go with the Giants or go somewhere else. Took a little bit of time for them to come around and get the deal done. But to me, that says a lot about what Robinson wanted. The fact that he waited so long for the Giants to make that move and sign him means that he wants to be here. He wants to be in New York. And I think that right now what we're seeing among the entire culture is that a lot of players want to play for the Giants. I was actually just reading something on our own Fireside Giants Giants Twitter account from Ford Wheaton. He said his phone was getting blown up. Like he was getting phone calls from the Eagles and the Cowboys and all these different teams, the Commanders, and he hung up, sent them all to voicemail just so he could talk to Brian Dable and make sure he was going to the Giants. You know what I mean? Like, you're seeing players. I know he's a UDFA, obviously a lot of upside. We really like him as a potential developmental piece, but you're seeing a lot of these players opt to go to the Giants because of the culture they're building, because of how awesome their free agent class has been. This past 2 years, the obvious draft allocations and boosting a lot of these guys, but also showing loyalty. We're going to see what happens with Saquon. Obviously, that's kind of a strange position that the Giants are in right now because he wants more than the market kind of dictates, but you see they've already shown their loyalty to Dexter Lawrence. Andrew Thomas is going to get extended. They've shown it to Daniel Jones. They're continuing to do the right thing and show that level of respect to the players. So I think that goes a long way. But also, when you have a great coaching staff, you tend to get the most out of guys, and players want to be on a team that they know they're going to see the best of themselves, right? Like, you saw Isaiah Hodgins was a practice squad. Now he'd probably be a receiver on most teams. You know what I mean? Like, you're seeing guys elevate their game, and ultimately that equals more money in their pockets, and those guys want to get paid. Everyone in the NFL wants to get paid. Brian Dable and this coaching staff are good enough to help them get there, and I think that's where you're going to see a lot of these players make those decisions. I'm going to get opportunities here. They're going to bring the best out of me, and I'm going to get paid. So I think that kind of goes a long way. A'Shaun Robinson, incentivized deal. Raheem Nunez-Roche, incentivized deal. You're seeing those two guys betting on themselves, and they know this coaching staff and Wink Martindale are going to get the best out of them, and they're going to be able to leverage that into a much bigger payday, which is, I think, why they decided to come to New York. What are your thoughts about that? The fact that these guys are deciding to come to the Giants, even though maybe other teams are giving them more guaranteed money. Instead, they're betting on themselves with the incentive-laden contracts and maybe leveraging that into a better deal in the future.
Well, I just think it's a testament to what Brian Dable has built here. I mean, he's gained a lot of credibility quite quickly overnight with the New York Giants as their head coach, but it's something that he's been working towards for many years. I mean, he was a well-loved coach for the Buffalo Bills as well when he was the offensive coordinator there. He was obviously highly regarded when he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama as well. Brian Dable, everybody just loves him everywhere he goes, and he's been very successful throughout the entirety of his coaching career, and that's been no different through one season as the New York Giants head coach. Joe Schoen, same story, different name. Pretty much the same exact thing. He's been very successful throughout his career, and he's always been around good cultures, and he's always found players who contribute to that good culture. So when you're looking at it from an outsider's perspective, looking into the Giants, it's something that it looks appealing, right? Like, players want to be a part of what the Giants are building. Bobby Okereke said the same thing. He said that he wanted to go to the Giants. Like, he told his agent, get me on the New York Giants. Again, another player that we're going to discuss as we talk about this run defense, but just it's been a recurring theme over and over again. I mean, even think about Odell Beckham Jr., how he said that he would never go back to the Giants while Dave Gettleman is still there. Then all of a sudden he was calling John Mara and asking to come back. And also the same thing with Landon Collins. He said that he would never go back to the Giants while Dave Gettleman was there. Dave Gettleman's gone. He saw what the Giants were building, how they were fighting for a postseason spot. He said, okay, let me try and get back on this team because I loved being there when I was there, until Dave Gettleman soured everything out. So I think when you look at it from all these different perspectives, from all these different players, it's very clear and obvious that the Giants culture is very attractive. It is attracting free agents, Bobby Okereke. It is attracting players to stay long-term, Daniel Jones, Dexter Lawrence. I mean, this is just something special. The Giants, in my opinion, are building something truly special. Even listening to a lot of the analysts and, pundits who have been talking about the Giants for several years in a negative light and have never had any shred of positivity to throw towards Giants fans. Now, all of a sudden, I love what the Giants are doing. They're doing a great job. This is a great team. It's the tone has completely changed. The feeling around the New York Giants has completely changed. And yes, I think that does play a part when you look at guys like A'Shaun Robinson, like Bobby Okereke, and all of the other free agents that the New York Giants have been able to attract. It's very clear and obvious to them and to the fans that this is an organization worth being with right now. They are building something truly special. And again, Bobby Okereke, one of those players who said that he really wanted to be here. What's he bringing here, though? Now, this is a player with a lot of athleticism from the linebacker spot. He was with the Indianapolis Colts for several seasons. Now gets his second contract with the New York Giants. Again, wanted to be here 4 years, $40 million, $10 million per year. Quite a lot for the linebacker position, but in my opinion, probably well worth it. We'll see how it pans out, how he plays on this deal. But a young player who's a real hard hitter. He's a run stopper. What do you think of Bobby Okereke, and how much of an impact can he have on the run defense going into the 2023 season?
I mean, like I said before, we haven't had a linebacker of this quality in a very long time, my friends. Bobby Okereke is a tremendous run stopper. And the thing is, and this is really interesting, the Colts did not use him as a pass rusher at all. And that's the thing. He wanted to go to the Giants, I think partially because of kind of the culture they're building, but also because he knows Wink Martindale is going to use him way more aggressively. He is a superior athlete, really, really athletic guy with a great frame, 6'1", 235 pounds, from Stanford, third-round pick in 2019. He's only 26 years old, guys. Like, this is a player that hasn't really even hit his prime yet. And, he's capable of being more of a pass rush threat than he's been in the past. I mean, his career high was 15 total pressures in 2021, the only season he played over 1,000 snaps. Last year, he played 970 snaps, 415 in run defense, 531 in coverage, only 24 pass rush snaps. I think they're going to use him a lot more as a blitzer, and I think he wants to be more involved. Like, he was kind of playing that, like, second-level Blake Martinez role, where he sat back, he just mitigated those big plays, he collected the tackles, he did what he had to do. But I think that Wink Martindale is going to open up his game and more so his aggressiveness and capitalize on his athleticism. So we're going to see him be a lot more aggressive. The Giants may elect to go with an inside linebacker who might be a guy like Darian Beavers or like a Gerard Davis, someone who can just kind of fill in those gaps, while Bobby Okereke can be that athlete, be that guy that is more aggressive, or even like a Micah McFadden. Someone who can just kind of mitigate those big plays and has good vision. I would say that Darian Beavers probably, out of anyone on the roster, has the best like football IQ from a linebacker perspective. Of the guys that are developing, I think he's probably ahead of McFadden when it comes to that. But again, the ACL tear, you just don't know what you're going to get from Beavers. Like, it's hard to say if he's going to come back 100%, what he's going to look like. We barely even got a view of him last year. So right now, it's hard to say who that LB2 will be, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was someone that was kind of that like mitigator on the back end, and they just kind of let Bobby Okereke utilize that athleticism a little bit more aggressively, while also being a prominent run stopper and collecting those tackles. I don't think that portion of his game is going to disappear, but I think we're just going to see a little bit more creative kind of style and strategy from Wink Martindale and how they utilize him. I'm a big fan of Bobby Okereke. I've been talking to him on Instagram. He's going to be coming on the podcast within the next couple of weeks. I'm leaving next Thursday to get married, so we'll see how that works out, but he said maybe next week we'll have some time. So that's kind of that's our drop right there. He will be on the podcast at some point this offseason, just a matter of when we can get some time, and that'll be pretty fun because we'll get to see kind of what brought him to the Giants, why he wanted to come here, what he expects his style to change, what he expects to do. But what are your thoughts on that? The creativeness that you can kind of expand upon when it comes to Okereke's athleticism, his style of game, and how Wink Martindale may try to get more out of him at this, when he comes to Big Blue and kind of becomes our Mike linebacker.
Yeah, well, we've seen Wink Martindale utilize some real athletes from the linebacker spot, just not during his time with the New York Giants. I mean, last year, the Giants didn't have much talent in the linebacker room. I mean, it was arguably the worst linebacker core in the NFL. I think a lot of people would actually agree with that take. Not a lot of talent there. Wink Martindale didn't have much to work with. But when he has had a lot to work with, looking back to his days with the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, he's gotten the most out of these guys. Patrick Queen is an absolute menace. And when Wink Martindale was utilizing him and all of his athleticism, that's when he started to become an absolute menace. So I think that now that Martindale has one of these really athletic linebackers who can kind of go sideline to sideline and make a lot of big time plays like that, you're going to see much better run defense, not only up the middle, but also on the outside. I think that once these teams start running this outside zone, having a player like Okereke who has all of that athleticism, that's where that really shows up. Now, Okereke, as you mentioned, isn't necessarily a top-notch blitzer, but his athleticism makes him project into a player who would probably be pretty successful as a blitzer, and we know that Wink Martindale loves to blitz. Wink Martindale loves to blitz more than any defensive coordinator in the NFL, so without a doubt, at some point, Bobby Okereke will be getting into the backfield as a pass rusher, and that's something that I'm really, really excited to see. Also, I think that Okereke provides way more coverage skills than any linebacker that's been on this roster since Martindale's been here. I mean, Okereke, not the best in coverage. He's not one of those elite coverage linebackers, but when you look at some of the interceptions that he's made throughout his career, some of the pass breakups that he's made, he clearly has some good instincts, and there is a lot to work with there. And again, his athleticism allows him to cover tight ends in a way that other Giants linebackers in the past have simply not been able to. So, looking at Okereke, he's a great fit with what Wink Martindale wants to do on defense. And again, what Wink Martindale wants to do on defense, pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. We know that he loves to get after the quarterback, send all those creative blitzes, blitz from every which direction. It's going to be really fun to see, and that ties into Dexter Lawrence getting that big extension, right? Dexter Lawrence is the heart and soul of this front seven. Usually your linebacker would be, but because Dexter Lawrence is such a great dominant force, now he's one of the highest paid defensive tackles in the NFL. That is your heart and soul of the New York Giants defense. Alex, what a year Dexter Lawrence just had. Second team All-Pro. Can he top it? What do you think? Because I think he's still young. I think there's plenty left in the tank. I don't think he's even close to his prime yet. Now, again, it's going to be hard for any player to replicate an all-pro season, but Dexter Lawrence is so damn good. We all are imagining that he's going to replicate it, but can he top it? Can he do better? In my opinion, and the main reason I think he can is because there's so much better talent around him. Last year, he was kind of carrying that defense, carrying the run defense, absolutely, and at times even carrying the pass rush. Dexter Lawrence didn't have a lot of help, but now with some better gap fillers on each side of his shoulder and some better linebackers behind him, I think that Dexter Lawrence is actually in a position to elevate his game even further and maybe become a first-team All-Pro. What are your thoughts on Dexter Lawrence potentially elevating his game to that level?
I mean, look, if Dexter Lawrence gets any better, we're going to have the best defensive tackle in football for a very long time, right? Like, he's very young. What is he, 24 years old, 25 years old? Like, you could argue he's not even in his prime yet. You know what I mean? Like, usually prime, I'd say, is like 26 to 30. Like, that's your prime years. Like, I don't even think he's there. If he gets any better than he was last year, which is all pro level production, he could be on the same level as Aaron Donald in terms of production. And I think that would be like one of the best draft hits we've had and would be, and still right now, shout out to Dave Gettleman for that. Like, that was a monster grab. And a couple years down the line, holy crap. And all it took was good coaching, by the way. You know what I mean? All it took was having Wink Martindale and great coaching to see Dexter Lawrence become one of the best interior defensive linemen in football. And by the way, Anthony, pat yourself on the back. I'm gonna pat myself on the back. We called that Cordarrelle, what's his name? Not Cordarrelle Patterson. Our defensive line coach that we got from Minnesota, Andre Patterson. We called that. We said that he was going to make an impact in the trenches with those big guys, that he was going to make an impact in the pass rush with those big dudes, and he turned some of those guys into legitimate superstars. You know what I mean? Kayvon Thibodeau had some massive moments. Do his stats like jump off the page? Maybe not jump off the page, but he had some huge fourth quarter moments. There was a reason we were calling him the closer at some points during that season last year. And Dexter Lawrence, you don't see players take that big of a leap without great coaching to pair with it, okay? So big shout out to Andre Patterson for that, because that was a hell of a job he did. Whoever else helped Dexter Lawrence get there, big kudos to those guys as well, because I'm sure there's others involved. But I'll tell you what, quote from Dexter Lawrence like a couple days ago, "I want to be a Hall of Famer, and I'm gonna be." What does that tell you? He is not done. Dexter Lawrence is not done being the best of his capabilities. He is not done proving to us that he can get any better than he was last year when he had 75 pressures, guys. 75 freaking pressures from a defensive tackle. Do you understand how rare that is? You pay guys like that because you don't find guys like that. Those are a freaking diamond in the rough. You know what I mean? They're not a dime a dozen. This is not a player you just stumble upon. These are players you develop over time that become elite. And when they do get to that point, and Dexter Lawrence right now, like I said, he's like 25 years old. He might not even be that old. I'm going to check right now, because ultimately, like, when you're looking at a player of this magnitude, you oftentimes like have to take a moment to just understand how great they are. He's 25 years old. So he has 5 more years in the middle of his prime, and he just signed a big extension of 4 years. That deal ends when he's 30. If there's any time to build a foundation around a player on your defensive side, it's right now, right? Dexter Lawrence is a superstar. Like, if he gets better, he's going to be a first-team All-Pro for the next couple of seasons, and he's going to wreak havoc on opposing offensive lines, and we need him desperately to do that, because the offensive lines in our division with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys, they're always good. We need players like this to disrupt that. We need guys like this to make an impact. The Commanders are usually okay to, kind of bottom half of the league, but Cowboys and Eagles, there's a reason we've lost to them for so many years in a row. Like, we just can't get those wins, and it's mainly because we can't rush the passer and we can't make big moments happen when it matters most. Guys like Dexter Lawrence do that. Guys like Dexter Lawrence against the Minnesota Vikings, against, Kirk Cousins with that big, that big swat, that big tackle sack, whatever it might be. those are the moments that he is able to produce, and your best players show up in those big games. And I think that right now, we need guys like this. I think Kayvon Thibodeau takes a big step forward. If Azeez Ojulari stays healthy, please God, our pass rush is going to be formidable, to say the least. And then Leonard Williams, you still have him around. He's a tremendous player to boot. So, our defensive line has the potential to be seriously good this year, guys. Barring injury, on paper, it looks pretty fucking great. Sorry for my language. I'm just very excited about it. But I imagine you can agree with that.
Yes, I can absolutely agree with that. And again, tying it all in, this is a really great way to recap it is just and wrap this one up, because when you're looking at all the improvements that the Giants have made all over the place, I mean, you can even go back to last year as well, bringing in Kayvon Thibodeau, go back a year further, you've got Azeez Ojulari there as well, and the depth that they've added in some of those positions, Jihad Ward, now Shane Zimenez re-signed this offseason, a little bit of depth there on the edge. Still think they're a little thin there, but when you're looking at the front seven in general, I think that you look at that defensive line, the added depth there, Jordan Riley, another player we didn't even discuss. Not sure too much of what he brings to the table, but clearly the Giants saw something when they were scouting him. He was a draft pick for us in the later rounds of the draft. We'll see what he provides to the team. Likely a run stuffer on those third and short, fourth and short situations like we mentioned earlier for Raheem Nunez-Roches. But tying it all in, Dexter Lawrence, again, being the heart and soul of the defense, he has more talent around him now. It was before opposing offenses focusing on Dexter Lawrence, how to slow him down, how to stop him, how to get around him, how to make plays on him. Now, they have to worry about Bobby Okereke. They have to worry about Kayvon Thibodeau as he enters his second season. They have to worry about A'Shawn Robinson in the running game. They have to worry about a lot more talent. That's going to open up more opportunities for Dexter Lawrence. So, we're talking about, is Dexter Lawrence in his prime? Again, I don't think so. I think there's room for him to improve. He's going to get better as the team around him continues to get better. And the Giants' front seven just got so much better this offseason. So I think that you're going to see a step forward from not only Dexter Lawrence, but Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari. Bobby Okereke could have his best season to date with a new team, new scheme, and more talent around him. It's all very possible that this Giants defense just takes a massive step forward this upcoming season. And again, that's exactly what they need. When you're talking about the front seven stopping the run, that is the number one thing that the Giants needed to improve on, and they tried to make every single improvement that they possibly could. Linebacker core improved, pass rushers improved, front seven, everything in between on the edge and in the interior, everything has been improved. So I'm really excited to see this unit hopefully take a big step forward in 2023, and that really should translate to some clutch wins in this upcoming season. But let us know what you think about all the improvements that the Giants made in their front seven down below in the comment section, and leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.